This is so exciting. So many people are asking about memoir. Should I write my memoir? Should I wait to write my memoir? I think I'll wait until I take a sabbatical or the kids don't need me, or maybe in the summer when things aren't so busy. Marion Roach Smith, pioneer of memoir. And if you're cringing, just know that I didn't even come up with that. One of my clients was like, you get to talk to Mary. She's a pioneer. And I was like, I'm writing that down.
Me too. Wait till I tell my husband.
Pioneer of personal storytelling, she said. So what do you say to all those women who are waiting for the perfect time or for someone to say it's okay?
Yeah, someone to say it's okay, or wait until they have it all figured out. No, that's never going to happen. We're never going to figure it all out. The best pieces of memoir are written from the small moments that illuminate the large issues of life. Small moments of marriage absolutely illuminate us on the large assignment it is to go the distance with another human being, if that's your interest. Or small moment with your dog, because we were just talking about dogs before we went live. My dogs teach me more than anybody's ever taught me. Dogs do things for us that people cannot do for themselves. And a small moment with a dog is the place to write from. You don't want to understand dogs. And for goodness sake, you are never going to understand marriage. So get to the little stuff to illuminate the big stuff. And you have literally everything on you right now you need to write memoir. Right. Except for the skills on structure. And that's, we're going to talk about that. But you've got the stories. Absolutely.
Right. But it doesn't come out of your head structured.
Right. No.
And I think that what I hear from people a lot, and you probably hear this too, is how do I decide what to write about? And what I say is, well, we can't decide until you put it on paper, because I can't tell what's in your brain. So you've got to at least start. How does someone start if they know they have a story to tell?
Sure. So the first, you have to know the difference between autobiography and memoir. Autobiography is that one big book that begins with your great-great-grandfather and ends with what you had for lunch today, which you shouldn't be writing because you're not famous. The famous write them, and we say, oh, I want to read that because we want to know what Sonia Sotomayor was thinking as she was a full scholarship person at Princeton and was brought up in the Bronx and went on to become the first Hispanic female Supreme Court Justice of the United States. That's autobiography. Memoir is written from one area of your expertise at a time. So you want to write from what you know after what you've been through. Then there are 5 forms of memoir: blog post, essay, opinion piece, long form essay, and book length memoir. So don't always just drill into that one big book. What do you want to write about? What interests you? What scares you? What have you overcome? So I always define memoir, after we distinguish it from autobiography, as just going from here to there. From when you could not do something to when you could, from when you did not know something to when you did, or when you had to quit something and you quit it, and what life gets like better, how life gets better after. So, in other words, you've got dozens of those stories, hundreds of those stories. Area of expertise. One of my areas of expertise is caregiving after my mother's 15 years of Alzheimer's disease. Another one is gardening, which gardening enriches my soul. I've been gardening for 30 years, but I'm not a professional gardener. Don't ask me the difference between your helianthus and your bubba-da-bubba-da-ba. I don't know. I just love the color, and I garden like a maniac. Dogs do things for me that people have not been able to do for me. I never write a gardening, dog caring, caregiving memoir in any capacity, essay, long form. I write from all of those places. And so this is how you start. What do I know? What interests me right now? Or what's going on in the world right now? Oh, a lot.
A lot. There's a lot going on in the world. I was just on the phone with a client who's an ER doc, and she also writes about her mother's schizophrenia. And I'm sharing this because she also, I'm going to put this in the chat. She wrote a piece for Huffington Post about her mom's psychiatry and the fact that she now is an ER doc. You know, she, if anybody wants to see it, there's
lovely. How generous.
Well, she's lovely, but she's sharing something that's vulnerable, that's timely, and it's so what makes it interesting now is not just that her mom's battle, but her view as an emergency physician, seeing the mental health challenges and patients come in who aren't getting the type of care that they need,
Right.
it there. Now she's working on her memoir and actually has editor interest, so that's good on her. But her question is, how do I roll these things into getting my book in the world? And I think that first step is, if you know you have this one story of this happened and now this is where I am today, write the essay.
Mm-hmm.
Just write. It's probably a page and a half, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know how to put that together, then Marion can help you. Let me share before we go forward, because I know some people are thinking, well, how do I get in touch with her? It's marionroach.com. It's not hard.
It's simple.
Just go straight there. She's got 4 different intro classes that you're going to want to spend the whatever $98 to just get through them, because they are broken down in ways that you can do on your own. And
Thank you.
you're welcome. But also, people like self-directed bite size. They don't like self-directed eat this entree. They're like,
no,
please give me the tapas.
Yeah, and we've got the live classes. I'm on those live classes every day. But let's get back to your client for a second. The person who's concerned about her mother's mental health, who has the authority as a medical professional to write from there. What you start with when you start to write an essay, what you have to know about memoir is that memoir is an argument-driven genre. It is not a plot-driven genre. Memoir is not about what you did. Memoir is about what you did with it. So this person has authority that is going to absolutely establish her as being of interest to publishers and agents. I just had a client the other day somebody I interviewed on Monday on a series I do called Let Me Introduce You, who wrote a simple essay for Cup of Joe. That's J-O, Cup of Joe, online site, really lovely. And simply when she heard that there were all these late diagnoses, adult diagnoses of autism, right? Wrote a simple essay, boom, contacted immediately by an agent, said, I think there's a book there. And as the author described for us the other day, she got more money for that book she'll never have to take a job again. She said, whoa, whoa, whoa. What did she have? Authority. She was a late diagnosis autism. She writes really, really well. She had written before. She was floating an idea, an argument on a short form platform, right? And the best, 2 of my 4 books came out of shorter pieces that I tried on the world before I committed to a book. Both of them, I was contacted and said, would you like to write a book about that? So what you hone in on in the short form is your argument. What is your argument? It's what you know after what you've been through. That dogs do things for people that people cannot do for themselves. That gardening enriches your soul. The caregiving requires boundaries. What do you know? And then all you have to do is curate scenes from your life to show us how you learned it. And you have a perfect piece of memoir written with authority.
Yes. Now that book, I'm just putting it in the caption below, is A Little Less Broken.
I love her.
And
Marion Shimbari, I just love this author so much. She just took it on.
Really. And the subtitle is How an Autism Diagnosis Finally Made Me Whole. And the log line itself is so interesting. And for those of you saying, Allison, please stop using like jargon language. I get it and I understand it, but it's important because the people who are here, if they're not already authors, they want to be authors, and you need to know these jargons. The log line is title, subtitle, is about. And the about isn't the time that I went hiking and stubbed my toe, because nobody cares what happened to you. The log line is the universal welcome to everyone, right?
Absolutely.
And I like, no one would have read Wild if it was all about my long-term hiking experience.
No,
dang,
that's just where it took place. I teach people what I call the Memoir Project algorithm, which is really simple. It's about X as illustrated by Y to be told in a Z. It's about something universal, as illustrated by my deeply personal tale, to be told in one of those 5 forms. What that
Mm.
does is it shoves you off center stage. It's not about you. It's about something universal, as illustrated by your deeply personal tale. And as soon as you understand this, you can write memoir forever.
Exactly. And but so many people probably come to you and they say, I have this story to tell and I think it's important and I want people to be inspired by that. As soon as I hear I want people to be inspired by that, I think, so you want them to do the job that you have a lesson, but you've woven it into a memoir, but you aren't, people don't want to do that literary limbo.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a lesson, spell it freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe you think you're writing a memoir, but your memoiristic storytelling, your personal storytelling is actually a psychology book. I
Could be.
mean,
Absolutely.
memoir is part of every genre nowadays. I mean,
I
half the
think
time
so.
I see a business book and I think, well, let me go to the description and it'll say part business, part memoir. And then I'll go to a memoir and it'll say part memoir, part business. I'm like, well, you know what? Sometimes that's just the marketing hook.
Well, the storytelling is the single greatest way to get anybody to believe anything. My father was a great writer, and he used to say that if you want anybody to remember anything, either put it to music or make it funny. And he wasn't being literal. He was saying, make it travel on something that we can love. And memoir is a genre we love because we are invested in change as thinking human beings. We want to live more fully. And what memoir does best is shares our humanity. So when I read your story of going hand over hand up a frozen gravel mountain in Nepal, it's not because I'm going to do that. It's because I want to invest in my own sense of perseverance. And I want to feed that place in my human soul. So memoir does inspire us, but it is never going to be inspiring if it's merely a date book. Nobody wants to read your date book. Nobody wants the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday version of your life. They want to see your transcendent change. And they want you to curate from your life scenes from when you didn't have it, Act 1, to when you learned it, Act 2, to what it did for you, Act 3. It's a simple 3-act structure, no matter what the form of those 5 forms, even a blog post, needs structure. And memoir then releases us to think differently and to live better.
We're getting some, well, first of all, you draw a crowd, my friend. So I'm digging it. So we've got an active chatteroo going.
Yeah, I see that. It's great.
And I love it. I love the questions and keep them coming. And if you do me this favor, folks, if you're writing or you have a book in you, put bestseller in the chat and don't be shy. And if you have questions and you just later and you don't want to put them out there right now, you can DM me or Marion on LinkedIn or on Instagram or Facebook. We're in all the places and we'll answer you, even if you're watching this as a replay. So don't be shy. So first question, at what point do you start querying agents? Before you start, before you finish? And I think that's a really good way to start. And we should probably I'm going to write this down for another lunch with Marion experience. The thing about memoir is if you're writing the full memoir, the novel that's about you and your story, not your life story, because dang, you have to write the entire thing, right? Marion, what do you say?
So this is a business question, really. And for all things business, I would be deferring to you, Allison, who knows more about marketing than I do. But I genuinely know that memoir editors, memoir agents want to know that you know that the book is not about you, that the essay is not about you, that it is about something and that it's illustrated by your experience. So however you're going to convey that to somebody, the single greatest way to convey it, because my clients constantly, this is what happens to them. They write the Modern Love column in the New York Times, they get it published. 3 of the authors that have worked with me have gotten it published. And by the end of the week had an agent. 2 of them got book deals within 5 days. Those columns are very convincing that the writer knows what she's doing, right? An essay, an op-ed, meaning an opinion piece. Op-ed means opposite the editorial page of your newspaper. And a well-placed op-ed, again, arguing something. You don't have to be a former Joint Chief of Staff to write one. You can be someone who fly fishes like I do and has noticed how much cleaner the streams are. And you do not want those policies rolled back. This is a great way. You won't have to query an agent. They'll come looking for you because agents have full-time assistants that are scouring the pages of the online sites, not just the New York Times and the New Yorker. Please do not set your sites solely there for your good arguments that they can convert into a book. After that, if you're not interested in writing an essay or an op-ed, then yes, a full-length memoir in which you have absolutely got nailed that algorithm, that argument. You must know what you're arguing and pitch it, and the next time you go to pitch something, if you go to one of those pitch conferences, never, ever, 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 ever pitch your book based on your plot, as Allison so wisely said. Pitch it based on the algorithm or the log line, as Allison said. I use the algorithm because everyone who hears it goes, oh, it's about
Right.
how
It
dogs.
makes it fill in the blank. Everybody loves Mad Libs.
Absolutely. Everyone loves
Right?
Mad Libs. And if you say to someone, oh, it's about the death of my father, they check out. But if you say, it's about learning that grief is a process that must be gone through slowly, as illustrated by the death of my father and my recovery, to be told in a memoir, we lean in. We say, grief is she knows something.
Right.
She knows something I want to know. Wait a minute. She knows something everybody needs to know. That's what publishers say. Oh, that's a book sale right there.
Mm-hmm.
See the difference?
Because people hear the first thing first anyway. And then they start thinking about that. The fact that you sprinkle in about this experience is like, oh, that's nice. But mostly it's about me. Yeah. That's why even in pitches, I do not enjoy a dependent clause that is essentially you backing into your power statement. So never do that. And if you, I remove a whole lot of throat clearing, tentative language, and dependent clauses because they blow. They are word debris. Yep, that keeps me from getting to the amazingness of you. Well, more questions. Okay. Can you just entertain?
Yes. Entertain is one of the most wonderful words in the world, and everybody avoids it. Yes, you absolutely can be entertaining. Memoir is not a bummer genre, not at all. I've read some delightful, hilarious. I've written what I hope are delightful, hilarious essays over the years. I used to be a commentator on NPR's All Things Considered, and I think most of my essays were funny. So yes, you can just entertain. Go right ahead.
Mm-hmm. So Catherine says, I want to take Marion's next op-ed class. Hey, Catherine, I saw you yesterday.
Thank you, Catherine.
Nice. Yeah, you should take her next op-ed class.
Monthly, and I teach it with a former Pulitzer Prize juror who knows everything about op-eds, everything about opinion pieces, former newspaper editor who's written hundreds of them and edited thousands of them, who will then help you place your op-ed at one of the newspapers in America, or the world. So please join us. He is so good at what he does.
When does that start, Marion?
Every month. It's a live class. It's 90 minutes, and it's on my website.
Okay.
Once a month, we teach that class.
If you're wondering, what's her website again? Yeah, it's marionroach.com. We're not trying to make it hard.
Yeah, we also have recorded versions of everything. So if you want it today, just go there and you can get the recorded version. Otherwise, join us in November. It's coming up again real soon.
Yeah, or do both. That way you're like, you know how it's going to roll, and then you can come live for sure. If you have not read Marion's book, The Memoir Project, please, there's the link. I'm really just trying to give people access to the thing. That way you don't have to search the interwebs looking for the where to go or what to do. It's the reason why I host these is because information that something exists should be easy to find.
Yeah.
Now, how you are going to put your words together for your memoir, that you want to, don't just piece that together from the interwebs. That's the one, when you actually put pen to paper, you want some help, and Marion's the one to go to. Now, Marion, let's talk about how, I'm going to take this down a second. Okay. So memoir, a lot of folks I work with are experts in their field.
Mm-hmm.
They have had an epiphany, an aha, and they usually say, "I've been wanting to write this memoir about my life lessons." And I'm like, "Wah wah, your life lessons, you can't just make a list, because without storytelling, it reads like a textbook."
Mm-hmm.
Or like a manifesto. And we don't want to get punched in the grill with that, because it
Mm-hmm.
hurts and it's also boring.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if you're an expert in your field, chances are your memoir personal stories are woven into something that might be about relationships.
Right.
It might be about um, uh, trauma and how it shows up. I mean, whatever you're an expert in, you're probably, if you're writing about your expertise and you are right now doing that thing, you still need to be able to write in a way that is personal. And so, memoir classes, or knowing how to put that together in a way that invites people in and makes us feel like we're actually there, instead of, one time I had a patient that did this.
Mm-hmm.
That's you telling about us, and it makes us check out. Marion, I'm sure you see a lot of these folks who think they have a memoir, but in your heart, like, you probably need some memoir coaching, but your book will probably end up something else.
So you can write from your professional area of expertise. Absolutely. We're probably not going to be interested in a book that just recounts professional expertise, except for this one exception. If you're a wonderful writer, Richard Selzer, writing about becoming a surgeon, we could read those stories all day long. Why? Because they're beautifully written. Why does Abigail Thomas get away with writing such a short word count in her books? I asked her once. I said, Abigail, did your publisher ever say to you, "Good God, woman, this book only has 15,000 words"? She said, the subject never came up. Now, why did the subject never come up? Because she's a brilliant writer. So you can make anything interesting and entertaining if you're a great writer. If you're struggling as a beginner, the best thing to consider is, what is your integration? What went into making you that great surgeon? Was it because you have a child with disabilities? Was it because you train dogs for a living? Like, what is it that makes you, what leavened that professional and extraordinary acumen? And thinking hard about becoming human, right? We are not interested in autobiography. You can self-publish an autobiography about becoming a great surgeon, but you need to write really, really well. And you need to think about the other things that went into the integration of you being that professional.
That there are so many people who do today for professionally, they were driven to it by something that inspired them young, or drove them, maybe not in a happy inspiration, but a, a negative experience or a trauma that happened to them early, that now they feel like this was my path, and I'm
Right.
here because of this. And there's personal storytelling in there. But the thing is, then you don't have to write the whole memoir. To get your book published, you need a book proposal, which is a business plan for your book. It is required, and it won't take 2 years to write. I mean, I can do them fast, and I can teach you how to do them fast, but you have to think like a marketer, because the book proposal is actually not about your book. It's about your audience segmentation, and no one ever thinks big enough about their audience. It's about the other books that they're reading. No one ever thinks widely enough about the audience. They think, oh, I'm writing memoir, I can only list memoirs. No, people don't read in nonfiction just one subgenre. They read about a topic.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, even if you're writing, let's talk about Jessica Waite's book, which is behind me, The Widow's Guide to Dead Bastards. Her comps, which, she did get a book deal very quickly, but her book is about not just her experience, but it's about when we prepared for her book launch, it's about financial independence, and it's about uh, mending relationships after death. And those, just even those two themes, we identified three more, but it's good to know that there are books that are about financial independence that are not memoir.
Mhm.
And how that's another book that would probably be next to this book on someone's to be read pile.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. She did a great job with that book. I love that book
Oh,
so much. The title is such a wonderful
I know.
invitation into a great piece of writing, and she's just to be congratulated. And it's so successful. I'm so pleased. I worked with her. I love her work, and I think she's remarkable.
She is. And people think like, oh, I could never, right? Like that title is so, they think they want a title that's that eye-catching, but then when I say, great, then here are 15 titles that we can consider, they're like, ooh,
Well,
how
that's
can
courage,
I'm not ready.
right?
And right. Or like, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Like, huh.
Well, courage is important. I can tell you a
Mm,
story about courage. I was 26 years old when I was at the New York Times, and I got tasked with writing the first person account of Alzheimer's disease. No one had ever written about it. No one had ever heard of it, literally. And my mother had it. She was 49 years old, and I was 26, and my life was falling apart. And so when I wrote the first draft, my editor sat down with me and he said, we need a better lead here. And we came up with this lead and that lead, and they weren't very good. The lead is the first paragraph. And I was terrified. And my mother was incontinent. She was hostile. She had tried to throw my sister down the stairs. This was my beloved mother. This is hard to cross into this territory and to be the first person to ever write about it. And the editor turned to me and he said, "So when did all this start?" And I said, "I thought my mother was going mad when she killed the cats." And I watched him very, very carefully type that sentence on the top of my piece and not look at me. And what I understood was, that had shot out of my mouth, I had never intended to open a piece of that, is if you open there, you cannot back down. And I could see by the fact that he wasn't making eye contact with me that he wanted it and he liked it. And it opens both the piece and it opens the book. And I dare you not to read the next sentence.
I
Right?
can't wait to, I'm like a little like foggy now, but I can't wait to do a search for that.
So
And
you get braver as you go. What
right,
isn't brave is, I was born in 1956 and I'm already bored. I
right.
just, this is not biography. This is, what are you going to show me? So I show you, I make an argument about caregiving and Alzheimer's and all of these things, but I first grab you into the story. And that's essential. So there
Mm,
is courage, and I'm not slapping myself on the back. I'm slapping all of us on the back when I say, get brave. Get brave. Yes, memoir has consequences. We should talk about that. There will be people who won't like your story. That's true. And the fact is, be honest. It's your story. If they want to write theirs, it's going to be different. Your sister has a different version than your story of every single incident of your life. Just get over it right now.
mm.
I know. I told what I thought was a hilarious story at a dinner party recently. My sister was there. She waited till the laughter died down, and then she said this: "That never happened." I love her for that. Right on time. She's
Yeah,
right. It didn't happen to her that way. That's the way it happened to me. And
yeah.
that's memoir.
Wow. Well, let me go to that is so true. And I have more questions, but I want to just see, let's see, somebody else. So I think people are answering each other's questions. Somebody's asking about uh, self-published books, and somebody else says, do not recommend. Self-published books are difficult because if you're an author who wants to self-publish, what you're saying is, I want to be in charge of everything and I don't want any input. And that is for sure possible. But it does mean that you have to dedicate yourself to know what a good cover looks like. It can't just be something that you're like, I'm a painter, this looks good. Like, but does it look good in relation to everything else that's being sold?
Mhm.
Are you going to become an expert in what formatting is perfect? Are you going to edit your own work? I got to tell you, I don't recommend it. I mean, even as someone who writes emails, the other day I wrote an email that comes from my email, and I got the the day of the week wrong, that two of my clients very nicely said, you might not have known this, but like the 29th is not a Thursday. Like, thank you. I should never edit my own work. It's hard.
Yeah.
And you have to be aware if you're going to want to do that. Let's see. Is there a link to the op-ed class? Yes, it is on Marian's website. And if you make me go to it, it just means that I'm going to come back here and have to do that.
Yeah, MarianRoach.com, on the upper right-hand corner, there's a tab that says classes, and you'll see everything there.
You'll see everything. She's not hiding anything.
Ooh.
I mean, yeah, for sure. Let's see. What other questions do we have? Marian helps you make sense of your story. Nice.
Thank you.
Catherine says she's in your 6 months masterclass.
Yes, she is.
Awesome.
Wonderful story too, which I won't give away, but wonderful story.
Oh, okay, perfect. Somebody wants to ask later about what app or program I'm using to stream this. I'm going to do a LinkedIn Live about setting up LinkedIn Lives, because it is a colossal pain in the tuchus. And I don't want anyone to have to go through the bumps and scrapes that I had to go through to make this seamless for myself. I have templates for everything, because that is how I roll. Because when you work in Fortune 50 companies, the moment you have to do something twice, you're like, now I have a template for that. So don't try and do it yourself. I'll show you. Even though LinkedIn says you don't have to, you can just use Zoom. You can't use Zoom unless you want to learn how to code. So
I see somebody here asking about how it's hard to figure out where to start and finish what to include. Maybe we should. Do you see that one?
Yeah, I do. I'm scrolling up. Yes, let's do that.
So let's talk about it.
Yeah.
What do you do? So you come up with an argument. You're going to argue that dogs do things for people that people cannot do for themselves. That's what you know after your 12 dogs that you've had in your life. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to picture yourself standing by a pond with a big old net, and you throw the pond in and you catch all those fish. Now, what are you going to do with all those damn fish? Instead, I want you to think about picking up a flat rock and skimming it across the top. You're just going to hit down here, 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 and here. In the first act, where you establish what's at stake, you're going to show me that when you were a kid, you were bit by a dog. You don't like dogs. You don't trust them in any way. During COVID, you became more of a recluse than ever. Your sister, however, is being deployed to the Navy, and she wants to leave her dog with you. You don't want her to, but she knows better than anyone that this dog is going to save your life. So she drops it off. End of Act 1. We've got a crisis, right? That's what you include. You're just skimming over the top of the pond. You're not giving us every dog you ever met. You're not giving us the title of every book you've ever read on dogs. You're telling us how you're developing a picture for us of what the crisis could be. In Act 2, of course, you just sit and stare at that dog for a while. You don't do a lot with that dog, but eventually you get out with that dog into a dog park, because you have to take a dog out, and you meet some other people, and you know how this story goes. Eventually you meet someone who has a dog and you become a foursome, and it solves the problem that your sister wanted to solve for you. Again, not every date you've ever been on, not every person you've ever met. Skimming a stone over the top of the pond of the argument of dogs do things for people that people cannot do for themselves. You're going to show us what you weren't able to do for yourself in Act 1. You couldn't go out. You couldn't bond to other people. You didn't like dogs. In Act 2, all you have to do is show us that you can do those 3 things by the end of Act 2. And in Act 3, you show us what an integrated life is with a dog and another human being with a dog. Memoir is a call and response. You call out in Act 1 what you cannot do, what you do not know, or what you must quit. In Act 2, you go get it, learn it, or do it. And in Act 3, you show us what life is like now that you have it, know it, or have quit it. It's a call and response. Where everybody goes wrong is when they start writing autobiography into it. But you selectively choose from your life, you curate from your life those scenes in Act 1 that show us what's at stake, those scenes in Act 2 that show us what you tried, and those scenes in Act 3 that show us what worked. And you'll have a perfect piece of memoir.
That is like the 2.5 minute masterclass. Like, check, now you're good.
Now you're good.
You can
You're good now.
Yeah, you got it covered. Check. I want to ask about the market for memoir because there's so much baloney. I'm like showing you the lead, but there's all this baloney of like self-help is dead. No, it's not. Memoir is dead. No, it's not. And I think we hear a lot because maybe writers hear this a lot because people who want them to maybe temper their expectations of like memoir is hard to sell. Well, a book is hard to sell. Are they trying to talk people out of it? I don't know, but I'm sure you hear this a lot.
Yeah, it's who you
Yeah.
hear it from.
Yeah.
So online are millions of people who have absolutely no experience and absolutely no reason to be selling you any advice about how to publish something. I only talk to people who have experience in getting something published in whatever form you want to get it published in. But I prefer to talk to people who have actually published their essays, their op-eds, their books when I'm getting advice. So first of all, consider the advisor. Second of all, memoir has been popular since St. Thomas Aquinas. And Frank wrote memoir. We have memoir here. We would not know about the slave experience in America if it weren't for the few existing memoir. We would not know about the immigrant experience if it wasn't for the many memoir. We would not know about the indigenous experience. We would not know about, we can go on all day long. Memoir is never going to fall out of fashion. And books are hard to sell, as they should be, because books are precious. We have probably in 2024 the greatest opportunity for everybody to be published. There are so many online sites. There are independent publishers. There are hybrid publishers. There are mainstream publishers. Don't listen when people tell you it's hard. Where do you want to publish? What do you want to publish? And what are you willing to do to get to that publication? I worked hard for my 4 books. It's a hard job. When people say to me, "Oh, I'm going to write a book when I retire," I used to be so polite. I used to say, "Oh, that's so lovely. Good luck with that." Now I say, "Oh, really? What do you do now?" And they say, "I'm a brain surgeon." And I say, "Oh, I'm going to be a brain surgeon when I retire." And then I smile and walk away because it's hard work. But I think it's the single greatest thing you can do for a living. And so it's an honor. But no, memoir has not fallen out of favor, and fiction hasn't fallen out of favor. And Netflix is going to continue to make wonderful things that we can stream because we're consumers of information. That's what we are. That's why this space exists on our bodies called the brain. So write your memoir.
Write your memoir and know that it's for someone else.
Yeah.
If you are a cowgirl, write your memoir. I mean, we love to see women doing amazing things that we know we probably won't do. In another life, I was a cowgirl, and I still want to be one when I grow up, but that's not in the cards likely. So I would read that for sure, but don't wait. When I hear people say, "Oh, after I retire, I'm going to write my whatever," I'm like, but you're going to write your memoir about having been a brain surgeon after you're done being a brain surgeon, when you're like, you're not doing it anymore. No one cares once you stop doing it. Like, you're done. You're old news. You're going to put together your leadership, like tenets to live by after you're done being a leader. Sorry, you're not on deck anymore. Somebody else is on stage. So write it now. Now, Marian, I want to ask you about the fashioning a great title. So many people think, I'm going to write my memoir about this, and for some reason, the first thing that they do is they think about their title, which I think helps them have kind of a North Star. I think it's fine to do that. But I change all the titles because I'm a lifelong publicist, and I'm looking for a headline that's going to sell.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no one right or wrong title or headline. But how can a memoirist make their title or their North Star stand out so it doesn't read like long-term, long distance hiking, the time when I went on the Pacific Crest Trail, because it's boring.
Right. So Wild was a great title. And,
Yes.
so what we want to do is understand what the proposition is for us, the reader. What am I going to get? And so that frequently requires a subtitle, as well, so that we understand it's a memoir and what the transaction is going to be, what the promise of the book is going to be. Yes, you're right. If you have a roof over your head, if you have a vague idea, if you think you're going to write a book titled this, it could help you. But I always advise people not to write their introductions before they write their books, because then you just write to that. And memoir is a process of so much self-discovery that you want to have that process. And similarly, titles can be very restrictive initially. Plus, beginning writers tend to choose really literary titles that just don't mean anything to anyone. So I have had so many books pitched to me based on Emily Dickinson, and Emily's My Religion. I've got 2 copies right here of her complete works. You can see them right behind me. I read her every day. But The Hour of Lead is not a good title for a book. We don't know what it means. We don't understand what you're trying to communicate to us. So I believe in getting somebody like our host here to help advise you on what sells. You can repeat titles. I wrote a book called Dead Reckoning. I spent 2 years behind the scenes in the world of forensic science. I had the time of my life. I went to blood spatter analysis school. I went to forensic entomology school. I went to autopsies. It was so much fun. But Dead Reckoning is the perfect title for the book I wrote, because I was talking about the new science of catching killers. It's a dead reckoning. It's spot on. I was talking about the science. So you want a title that actually engages your reader, invites them in, makes them pay for, pick up and pay for the book. But you don't want to get too literary. It gets really murky really fast.
Right. And you just give away the whole kit and caboodle if you tell them everything in the title.
Oh, that's true. Sure. It's like trailers for movies these days. Why would I go to any of these movies? They give you everything, including the conclusion. It's like, well, that was a mistake.
And then this happens, and then that happens. Right. Oh, people do that a lot in subtitles. About the time then this happened to me, and then I found myself like, well, thank you for saving me from even reading the back cover. Now I don't even have to read that because I know exactly what happened, and you are congratulated by me because you found yourself. When people say, I know I should be, writing articles, but I don't want to give anything away. I say to them, well, you're essentially saying, I'm going to go into my groundhog hole. I'm going to write my whole thing, and then I'll launch it. I'm like, nobody's waiting for you because you are not Puxatawny Phil. And you also need to sort of try out some of you don't have to use the chapter 4, but you can write about the process of writing about chapter 4. What do you say to people who are so focused on writing their book that they don't write anything else yet?
Yeah, it's not a good practice. All writers need to have all the tools in their toolbox. You need to know how to write a blog post, an essay, an op-ed, a long form essay, and a book. Why? Because that's what writers do. Some writers cross genres. They do literary criticism, they do book reviews, they do essays, they do memoir, they do short stories, and they do poetry. I think you should have everything on you at all times. And I don't think that writing one big book over and over, for years is the healthiest thing. You should be deploying essays out into the world so you develop an audience. Also, it's a single best way to attract an agent or an editor. But more than anything, it hones your practice of an argument. How do you prove an argument over and over and over and over and over? Well, my neighbors are used to watching me walk, talking to myself. I am asking myself, what is this about? What is this about? What is this about? What is something just happened. I just had a transaction with my husband, with the dog, with a tomato hornworm in the garden. I don't know what, with something. And I'm asking myself, something just shifted there. What is this about? What just happened? And so what is this about is the single greatest question you can ask yourself. But I've written hundreds of essays. I've written from parenting. I've written from marriage. I've written from being a sister. You want to have those tools. You want to be writing. You need a daily writing practice. You need to habituate this. All of my clients, and I have 120 books on my shelf of people who have successfully published books with me, thousands of essays, countless op-eds. They have learned to habituate this. They're all busy. They all have jobs. Some of them have kids, houses, dogs, families, elder parents. They only have 45 minutes a day to write. I teach them what to do with those 45 minutes a day. And here's the first thing you do. today, now, right now, this second, you give up any writing prompts or any writing exercises you are ever thinking of using. I have never used one. I have never given one to anyone, and they do not give them out at the New York Times where I was trained. You do the work. Do you want to write the Modern Love column? Read 25 of them. Study the form. Go type in submissions guidelines, Modern Love column. The New York Times tells you how to succeed right there on the site. They tell you what they want. They tell you the word count. Follow the instructions, right? No more writing prompts. Spend the time doing what we call at the Memoir Project, writing with intent, meaning you study the form, write the form, master the form, and publish the form. That's how you succeed.
Mic drop. Dang. Yes, for sure. All of those things. The thing is, sometimes you're writing memoir and maybe you've written the memoir and you query an agent and you get feedback, and hopefully, first of all, if you want to know how to do that, I will share that later, but because it's a process. But you'll get feedback of like the memoir so hard to sell. Translation, you haven't shown how you are marketable because it's your job. So this happens often, and it's because you've written something that really should be out there and is ready to be out there, but you don't have discoverability yet. And the way to do that is to establish kind of a byline basket, if you will. You don't have to be published everywhere, but choose 5 media outlets and make sure they're not interchangeable. You don't need to be on People and Today and Huffington Post because they're reaching the same type of audience, but it might be Psychology Today and Huffington Post because those are reaching a different audience. Mm-hmm. And you're trying to show that different types of audiences relate to you. Mm-hmm. But don't go for the tiny itty bitty literary magazine because very few people, they're just, the readership isn't big enough. There's room for that, and those are highly sought after and competitive, and the writers there are lovely, and many of them are my clients, but I push them to say, that's great that you've been published in the Rumpus so many times, but like, how about we submit to Time because it's bigger. Mm-hmm. It's not like but they just don't think that like, oh, but that's so big. Like, but you're a big deal. You're always a big deal. So you're a much bigger deal than you think you are. So for instance, when Jessica Fine, who wrote Breathtaking, it's somewhere around here. There it is. This book was ready. We pitched it and she was like, I really want to pitch it. And the feedback, and we didn't pitch it widely, but she was like, I'm just not getting the pickup. I'm like, yeah, because the proposal itself revealed that there was a gap in having a fully saleable package. Like we just needed to expand the variety of her byline basket because she had been had lots of essays in Huffington Post. I'm like, okay, well then let's check that box. That's enough of that. Right. So we pitched her to Psychology Today, and instead of just getting one opportunity, they offered her a column.
Perfect.
Which was she was the first person I ever pitched there that wasn't a medical practitioner. Mm-hmm. And they have dubbed her the patron saint of grief.
Yes, she certainly is. Absolutely. Does a great job.
And then she started a podcast, I Don't Know How You Do It, which gave her another platform. Absolutely. So she's not just waiting.
Right.
That's my point. So you don't have to wait. You don't have to wait until your book is finished or till an agent says something to you. You do have to increase your opportunity to impact people, to give them something.
Absolutely. And along the way, you become a better writer because writing begets writing, and you've got to write broadly. You absolutely have to write broadly.
Marian, what is the one thing before we call this complete that you want to leave people with?
Right. Everyone has stories. I genuinely believe this, and nobody should wait until they have it all figured out, which brings us right back to where we started. So it's just lovely, Allison. Thank you for the great conversation, and thank you to all the people that showed up. It's fabulous to see.
Yep. And don't forget, leave comments. We will come back to you. We so appreciate you, and stay tuned. I will bring Marion back, because I will make a list of all these questions, and we'll come back and hit it again.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.